Hey everybody, I want to talk to you guys about printing and specifically printing Booklet. So far we've just been printing regularly. We've been printing spreads, but things change when you are trying to paginate an entire book or booklet. So I'm going to show you how to do that right now. So typically when we wanted to print this out, we would go up here and go File, Print. And some of you may have already discovered that there's another option for printing booklets that is last on the list. So if you click on that, it's going to pull up a somewhat familiar but slightly different print dialog box. There's a couple ways you can actually print directly to the printers from this, or the preferred way to do it is print to a Postscript file, which will allow you to open it in Preview or Adobe Acrobat or any other PDF viewer. I'll get to that later, maybe not in this video specifically, but in class for sure. But I'm going to show you how to print to a Postscript file for those unmentioned reasons. So the first thing you want to do in this dialog box, you can set up your own print settings. You'll be doing this a lot. If you can confirm that it works and works well, it's always good to save. There's less of a chance that you're going to reintroduce errors once you've got it right. So know that that's an option, just like anything in InDesign. However, we'll approach this as though it were the first time. So the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that all my pages are being printed. And then I want to go to booklet type, and you can see there's quite a few different booklets that you could be printing. These have more to do with printing broadsheets like on full press sheets where you're printing several pages, folding them up into signatures, stitching them, and then perfect binding them. What we're going to be doing is a 2-up saddle stitch. So that means 2 printed pages per sheet with a stitch in the middle. Some of you guys will actually stitch it. Some of you guys will use staples. But in any case, that's the one we want. We're not going to, for our purposes, deal with creep and signature size, space between pages. I'll explain this principle in class, but just as a refresher, this has to do with the fact that the internal pages are going to stick out more than the pages that wrap around those internal pages due to the thickness of paper, which seems marginal, but on the aggregate can actually throw things off quite a bit when you're trimming it up. We're not going to deal with that, like I said, because we're really only dealing with 10-12 pages and it's not as substantial as it would be otherwise. We don't need to deal with this right now because we're printing to a Postscript file. If you were printing directly to the printer, you maybe would want to pay attention to this. If you have full bleeds, any imagery that goes off the page, you're going to want to deal with this on a case-by-case basis. So the first thing I'm going to do, once that's all completed, is go to print settings and make sure those are all right. They're all correct. I'm going to select a Postscript file, and I believe the default is device independent. And you can see when we do that, that grays out quite a few options. We're going to select Adobe PDF 9. If that hasn't been loaded on your machine, you can certainly pick any other one that is included. HP LaserJet is my office printer. Adobe PDF 9 or anything, any version thereof should be good. And so we'll use that just because my guess is that's going to be more comparable to what you're finding on your machines. So you can see some of this is grayed out because we dealt with it back here. We're going to make sure print blank pages is on. We definitely want that. We don't want master pages. We're going to go to setup, and you may have to switch the orientation to landscape. You can choose a custom paper size. We're leaving it at custom because this is a little abstract right now, but our page size is a half letter, or not even really. It's a 5x8, so that means it's custom. We're going to let that ride for now. That won't have any effect on when we actually go to print this. This is just for the purposes of the Postscript file. So we're going to make sure that it's at 100%, both in width and height for scale, and that the page position is centered. That should all be familiar. And then we're going to turn crop marks on, and in this instance you guys are probably going to find it helpful. I believe the default is an offset of 6 points. I'm gonna change this to 3 points so that not as much gets truncated when we're taking into account the printer margins on the laser printer. So once we are done, say we knew that worked, we could save that preset. I'm just going to click OK. And then I'm going to come over here. This kicks us back to our booklet dialog box, and I'm going to click Preview. And you can see that it all fits on the page. We have a blank page and then page 1. Where this is going to potentially confuse you guys is this pagination. So it goes second to beginning, second to last, third to beginning, third to last. And this is because when you reorder these and staple in the center, this pagination will actually make it correct. Again, super abstract. You might just have to trust InDesign on this one until you print one out and see the actual effect. You can check print summary. A lot of this is going to be technical in nature, but sometimes it can be good to go over and just kind of check, oh yeah, my margins are off. I'm definitely working in a 2-up saddle stitch, no creep, etc., etc. So once we do that, we're going to click Print. And this is where we're actually saving the file. We're saving a print file that we can then proof before we actually waste a bunch of paper. So I'm going to give this a name. In this case, I'll give it the same name as one I tested earlier. I'm going to save over the top of it. And there it is. So essentially we just printed a digital file. It's called a Postscript file. A little bit of a vestige from when you could load those directly into printers. But in any case, it is openable and editable in Preview or Acrobat. Acrobat is the preferred place to print. It gives you far more control, and Dan will appreciate it. However, I'm just going to open it in Preview and show you guys what happens. So I double click on this and it will convert that into what is going to be spit out of the printer. And you can see, of course, our first page doesn't have a number, but it goes 2, and then our last page, a blank page, and then 3, 4, 17, 16, 5. Now we have the ability to proof and make sure that in fact our pagination is correct, that everything looks okay. This is where we would actually go and click Print, and then you will want to make sure that scale is at 100%. And again, this would be just as applicable, although not as obvious in Adobe Illustrator, or excuse me, Adobe Acrobat. Make sure that's letter sized. Two-sided is on. You might have to change this to short edge binding. Basically, the difference between the two is how it flips a page. So on long edge, it will flip it over the long edge, which will mean one side will be right side up, the other will be upside down. We will want this as short edge so that it's flipping over a common axis. Once you do that, you can of course change the paper feed if you're using specific stock. You can change things. You want to avoid this because you will have double duplexed it. That is, it will reorder the pages once again, and we already did that in the file in InDesign. So that's a bit of a red herring for when we actually go to print it. Ignore it. You just want to print it double-sided over the short edge. We'll click Print, and then it should, in theory, print out a full booklet. The reason why we're doing it this way as opposed to going straight to the printer is to assess for any errors, of course, but this also gives us far more options in terms of printing things on cover stock, printing things on special paper. We can specify the tray from here, and then this will also give us the ability, if you wanted to, I don't know why you would necessarily, but say you wanted to print this at Kinko's because the lab was closed on the weekend, you could take this and just simply say, print this double-sided over the short edge. They would know exactly what you mean. If you handed them the InDesign file, which I shudder to think what their response would be, my guess is you wouldn't be getting something that you expect. So this streamlines the process for involving outside vendors and printers. All right, hope that helps. Of course, if you have any questions, let me know. Thanks.